The breaking point. The crimson dust of Mirac's dying landscape swirled around the remnants of what was once a thriving civilization. Jagged crystalline structures, now shattered and worn, stood as silent witnesses to a world on the brink of total extinction. Kira Voss stood at the observation point of the last operational research station, her three-fingered hands gripping the reinforced viewing window with a mixture of desperation and resolve. The planetary core was collapsing. It wasn't a sudden catastrophe, but a slow, inexorable process that had been consuming Mirac for generations. Geological instability, coupled with centuries of resource extraction, had created a terminal condition for their entire world. The planet was quite literally eating itself from the inside out. Kira was the lead planetary survival strategist, a title that had become increasingly ironic as their options dwindled. Her people, the Meraki, had once been masters of planetary engineering, capable of terraforming entire star systems. Now, they were reduced to watching their homeworld die, with less than 1 million of their species remaining. Preliminary projections are complete, announced Roran, her assistant and the station's chief data analyst. His holographic form flickered slightly, a testament to their failing power systems. We have approximately 7 standard orbital cycles before total planetary collapse. 7 cycles. Less than 3 Earth years. The Meraki had exhausted every possible solution. Massive underground stabilization attempts had failed. Attempts to redirect the planet's tectonic movements had only accelerated the destruction. Massive evacuation ships, constructed with the last of their technological prowess, could support only a fraction of their population. Extinction was no longer a possibility, it was a mathematical certainty. Kira's mind raced through diplomatic channels they had already explored. The Galactic Confederation had been sympathetic but ultimately unhelpful. They offered condolences, not solutions. The independent trading consortiums viewed the Meraki as a potential resource to be acquired, not a civilization to be saved. But something in Kira refused to accept defeat. Her communication systems, barely functional, picked up a distant signal. It was different from the usual background noise of stellar interference. Clean. Structured. Intentional. Roran, analyze that transmission, she commanded. The holographic assistant's eyes, more like data streams than actual eyes, focused intently. Incoming communication. Source, unknown. Language protocols, processing. Minutes passed. The signal repeated, its rhythm almost musical in its precision. It's not from any known Galactic Confederation member, Roran reported. Preliminary analysis suggests, human origin. Humans. A species rarely encountered in this sector of the galaxy. Known for unpredictability. Technological innovation. And, according to fragmented historical records, an unexpected capacity for both extraordinary violence and remarkable compassion. Kira's hand moved to the communication console. Protocol suggested caution. Their previous interactions with spacefaring civilizations had been cautious at best, disastrous at worst. But desperation had a way of rewriting protocols. Open a direct channel, she instructed. The communication system crackled to life. Static gave way to a clear signal, and a voice, distinctly human, emerged. Unknown vessel, this is Captain Eli Reyes of the humanitarian exploration vessel Horizon. We've detected significant planetary distress signals. Do you require assistance? Kira exchanged a look with Roran. This was not a standard first contact scenario. This was a lifeline, potentially their last. This is lead strategist Kira Voss of Mirac, she responded, her voice steady despite the weight of her civilization's fate. We require more than assistance. We require survival. The next few moments would determine everything. The fate of an entire civilization hung in the balance, suspended between the dying world beneath them and the unknown potential of a chance encounter among the stars. Bridges between worlds. The Horizons Bridge was a study in controlled tension. Captain Eli Reyes studied the holographic rendering of Mirok, a planet literally tearing itself apart. The geological scans were unlike anything he'd encountered in his decade of humanitarian missions. Dr. Imani Okoro, the ship's lead xenobiologist, traced the planet's fracture lines with a delicate finger. "It's not just geological instability," she muttered. "This is systemic planetary breakdown. The core is essentially liquefying." Communications specialist Kai Rodriguez adjusted the translation matrices. The initial communication with Kira Voss had been promising, but cross-species communication was always a minefield of potential misunderstandings. "The Meraki communication protocols are complex," Kai explained. "Their language isn't just verbal, it's a combination of quantum-encoded emotional signatures and linguistic structures. Our current translation systems are catching maybe 60% of the nuance." Captain Reyes understood the stakes. The Horizon was technically a humanitarian vessel, part of the United Earth Stellar Relief Corps. They'd responded to planetary disasters, refugee crises, and ecological collapses across multiple star systems. But Mirok presented a unique challenge. An entire civilization needed evacuation, and they had limited time. Meanwhile, on the Meraki research station, Kira Voss was equally cautious. Humans were an unknown quantity. Historical records suggested they were capable of remarkable compassion, but also of profound destruction. "We need to be precise in our communication," she instructed Roran. "Every transmission must convey the urgency of our situation without appearing desperate." The first substantive communication was a delicate dance of information exchange. The humans wanted to understand the full extent of the Meraki crisis. The Meraki needed to assess the humans' true intentions. "Our planet has approximately 2.3 stellar cycles before complete tectonic collapse," Kira transmitted. "We require not just evacuation, but preservation of our cultural and technological heritage." The response from Captain Reyes was measured. "We are prepared to discuss comprehensive evacuation and relocation strategies. However, we will need detailed information about your population, technological capabilities, and specific requirements." It was a diplomatic minefield. The Meraki had been betrayed by other spacefaring civilizations before. The humans seemed different, but trust did not come easily to a species facing extinction. Dr. Okoro's analysis revealed fascinating details. The Meraki were not just another humanoid species. Their biology was a marvel of adaptive evolution. Three-fingered hands with quantum-responsive neural connections. A respiratory system that could process multiple atmospheric compositions. Cellular structures that could hibernate for centuries. "They're not just survivors," she told Captain Reyes. "They're living proof of evolutionary resilience." Kai Rodriguez worked tirelessly on the translation matrices. Each transmission revealed layers of complexity. The Meraki didn't just communicate, they transmitted emotional and contextual information simultaneously. A single word could carry the weight of generations of cultural memory. The negotiations were intricate. The humans needed to understand the full scope of the evacuation. How many Meraki remained? What technology could be preserved? What cultural artifacts were critical to their survival? Kira Voss presented her first comprehensive proposal. Not just a request for rescue, but a potential partnership. The Meraki weren't looking to be saved, they were seeking collaborators in their survival. "We do not want charity," her transmission read. "We offer our knowledge, our technological insights, our collective memory. In exchange, we require safe passage and the opportunity to rebuild." Captain Reyes recognized the proposal for what it was, not a plea, but a negotiation between potential equals. The Horizon's crew worked around the clock. Humanitarian missions were always complex, but this was different. This wasn't just about saving lives. This was about preserving an entire civilization's legacy. As the first detailed plans began to take shape, both the Meraki and the humans understood that they were on the cusp of something unprecedented. Not just a rescue mission, but the potential birth of a new kind of interstellar relationship. The bridge between two worlds was being constructed, one transmission at a time. The rescue mission. The preparation was unlike any previous humanitarian mission in human stellar history. The Horizon underwent radical modifications to accommodate the Meraki survivors. Entire decks were reconstructed with adaptive environmental systems, quantum resonance communication nodes, and biomechanical life support mechanisms. Dr. Imani Okoro worked alongside Roran, the Meraki data specialist, mapping out the intricate details of population transfer. They discovered that less than 800,000 Meraki remained, each one carrying the genetic memory of a civilization on the brink of extinction. "We can't just move bodies," Imani explained to Captain Reyes. "We're transporting living libraries. Each Meraki carries generational knowledge encoded in their cellular structure." The first phase of the rescue mission would be the most critical. Meraki research stations and survival pods would need to be carefully extracted from their dying planet. The geological instability meant that timing was everything. One miscalculation could result in the loss of thousands. Kira Voss prepared her people with a combination of scientific precision and cultural leadership. Each Meraki was assigned a specific role in the evacuation. Some would preserve technological archives. Others would maintain critical biological samples. The youngest would be protected in specialized hibernation chambers. But the mission faced an unexpected threat. Long-range sensors picked up an unusual signal, a fleet of ships from the Zaran Confederacy. The Zarans were known as opportunistic scavengers, always looking to profit from planetary disasters. "They've detected the Meraki evacuation," Kai Rodriguez reported, his fingers flying across communication interfaces. "They're positioning themselves to intercept." The Zaran approach was predictable. They would attempt to claim Meraki technology, capture survivors for potential slave labor, or worse, strip mine the remaining resources of the dying planet. Captain Reyes understood the stakes. This was no longer just a rescue mission. It was a fight for survival. "Prepare defensive protocols," he commanded. "But we avoid direct conflict if possible." The Horizon's advanced shield systems were formidable, but the Zaran fleet outnumbered them. This would be a battle of strategy, not raw firepower. Kira Voss proposed an audacious plan. The Meraki would use their advanced quantum communication technology to create false transmission signals. They would confuse the Zaran tracking systems, making it appear that the evacuation was happening in multiple locations simultaneously. "Misdirection is our greatest weapon," she told Captain Reyes. "We've spent generations adapting to survive. This is just another adaptation." The rescue began under the cover of a massive solar storm. Electromagnetic interference would provide additional cover for the evacuation vessels. Massive transport ships, carefully modified to support Meraki biology, began the delicate process of extraction. Each transport carried more than just survivors. They carried seed banks of Meraki plant species, quantum data archives, cultural artifacts that represented millennia of civilization. Every piece of cargo was a testament to their will to survive. The Zaran fleet moved closer. Their predatory ships, sleek and menacing, began to close in on the evacuation zone. But the combined human Meraki strategy was working. False signals scattered their attention. Quantum communication disruptions created chaos in their tracking systems. Inside the Horizon's command center, the tension was palpable. Captain Reyes watched as transport after transport successfully escaped the dying planet's gravitational pull. Each successful extraction was a victory against seemingly impossible odds. "We're going to make it," Kira Voss said, her voice carrying a mixture of hope and exhaustion. "We're going to survive." The first phase of the rescue mission was nearly complete. But both the humans and the Meraki knew that the real challenge was just beginning. They were not just moving a population, they were preserving the essence of an entire civilization. As the last transport ship cleared Mirak's deteriorating atmosphere, a new chapter of survival was about to unfold. Survival's Crucible. The journey through deep space tested every aspect of human and Meraki endurance. What had begun as a rescue mission was transforming into something far more complex, a delicate dance of survival and mutual adaptation. Temporary refugee zones had been established in the outer reaches of the Callisto Neutral Zone, a region of space traditionally used for diplomatic negotiations and emergency settlements. Here, the Meraki survivors began the challenging process of reimagining their existence. Dr. Imani Okoro documented the extraordinary resilience of the Meraki. Their bodies, evolved to survive extreme planetary conditions, now faced the ultimate test of adaptability. Hibernation chambers became more than just survival pods, they were living libraries of genetic memory. "They're not just surviving," she told Captain Reyes during a late-night strategy session. "They're actively evolving. Each moment of stress is triggering cellular adaptations we've never seen before." Kira Voss faced her greatest challenge yet. As the primary leadership representative of her people, she needed to maintain hope while confronting the harsh realities of displacement. The loss of their homeworld was more than a physical devastation, it was a profound cultural and spiritual wound. But the Zeran threat was far from over. Intelligence reports suggested the Zeran Confederacy wasn't finished. They viewed the Meraki evacuation as an opportunity, a chance to acquire rare technological and biological resources. Scout ships began probing the edges of the refugee zone, testing defensive capabilities. Captain Reyes knew they were preparing for something bigger. "They won't accept defeat easily," he told Kai Rodriguez, the communications specialist. "The Zeran see the Meraki as nothing more than a resource to be harvested." The refugee zone became a crucible of innovation. Meraki engineers worked alongside human technologists, combining their knowledge to create defensive systems unlike anything seen before. Quantum communication networks merged with human computational technologies. Adaptive biological defense mechanisms were integrated with advanced shield technologies. A turning point came unexpectedly. During a routine medical examination, Dr. Okoro discovered something remarkable. The Meraki were developing a unique form of symbiotic technology. Their biological systems could directly interface with mechanical systems in ways never before observed. "It's like their entire cellular structure is becoming a living, adaptive network," she explained. "They're not just surviving. They're transforming." This discovery caught the attention of multiple galactic powers. The refugee zone became more than a humanitarian mission, it was now a potential technological breakthrough of unprecedented magnitude. The Zeran threat loomed larger. Intelligence suggested they were assembling a massive fleet, preparing for a full-scale assault on the refugee zone. Their goal was clear: capture Meraki technology and eliminate any potential threat to their resource acquisition strategies. Kira Voss called an emergency strategy meeting. Representatives from the surviving Meraki clans gathered with human leadership. They were no longer just survivors, they were becoming something entirely new. "We will not be victims," she declared, her voice resonating with a combination of scientific precision and cultural determination. "We will not be resources to be harvested. We will be architects of our own survival." Captain Reyes recognized the moment for what it was: a fundamental shift in their mission. This was no longer just about rescue. This was about creating a new model of interstellar cooperation and survival. As the first signs of the Zeran assault began to appear on long-range scanners, the combined human Meraki forces prepared for a confrontation that would determine not just their survival, but potentially the future of interstellar relations. The crucible was heating up. And from its intense pressure, something extraordinary was about to be forged. Rebuilding horizons. The aftermath of the Zarin confrontation transformed the refugee zone into something entirely unexpected. What had begun as a temporary settlement was becoming a new kind of civilization, a hybrid society that defied traditional galactic boundaries. Reconstruction was more than physical rebuilding. It was a complete reimagining of what survival could mean. The Meraki's unique biological adaptability became their greatest asset. Their quantum-responsive cellular structures allowed them to integrate with technological systems in ways no one had previously imagined. Entire research facilities were redesigned around their unique capabilities, creating living networks of biological and mechanical symbiosis. Dr. Imani Okoro's research team made breakthrough after breakthrough. The Meraki weren't just adapting to their new environment, they were actively reshaping it. Their cellular memory contained millennia of ecological engineering knowledge, which now found new expression in the refugee zone's infrastructure. "It's like they're terraforming from the inside out," she explained during a galactic scientific conference. "Not just adapting to an environment, but becoming the environment." Kira Voss emerged as more than a political leader. She became a bridge between two fundamentally different ways of understanding existence. Her negotiations with human governmental bodies and scientific institutions opened up new pathways of interstellar cooperation. The refugee zone began to attract attention from across the galaxy. What had started as a humanitarian mission was now a beacon of hope and innovation. Scientists, diplomats, and researchers from multiple star systems came to study this extraordinary community. Captain Eli Reyes found himself in an unexpected role. No longer just a rescue mission commander, he was now part of something larger, the creation of a new model of interstellar cooperation. "We're not just saving a civilization," he told his crew. "We're witnessing the birth of something entirely new." The Zarin threat had not disappeared entirely. Intelligence suggested they were regrouping, plotting their next move. But the combined human Meraki forces had proven themselves formidable. Their defensive systems, a unique blend of biological and technological innovation, had successfully repelled the initial Zarin assault. Most surprisingly, the Meraki began to transform the very concept of refugee status. They weren't passive survivors waiting for rescue. They were active creators of their new reality. Agricultural systems emerged that defied conventional understanding. Meraki biotechnologists developed crop systems that could grow in the most challenging environments. Their quantum-responsive plant species could adapt to multiple planetary conditions within minutes, promising revolutionary solutions to galactic food scarcity. Educational institutions were redesigned to incorporate Meraki knowledge transfer methods. Their ability to encode generational knowledge directly into cellular memory created entirely new learning paradigms. Students could now experience historical events not just as abstract information, but as living memories. Cultural exchange became more than a diplomatic nicety. Human and Meraki artists collaborated on projects that blended visual, auditory, and quantum-responsive artistic expressions. Museums began to showcase works that could literally change based on the emotional state of the viewer. But challenges remained. The psychological trauma of losing an entire homeworld couldn't be easily overcome. Support systems were developed that combined human psychological practices with Meraki quantum emotional healing techniques. Kai Rodriguez, the communications specialist, found himself at the center of these transformative efforts. The translation matrices he had developed were now evolving into something far more profound, a true bridge of understanding between species. "We're learning to communicate not just with words," he explained, but with the full complexity of lived experience. As the refugee zone continued to grow and transform, it became clear that this was more than a survival story. This was the emergence of a new kind of civilization, one that challenged every previous understanding of adaptation, cooperation, and hope. The horizon was no longer something to be feared. It was something to be created. The new legacy. A decade had passed since the evacuation of Mirok. What began as a desperate rescue mission had become a transformative chapter in galactic history. The settlement, no longer a refugee zone but a fully recognized stellar community, stretched across 3 interconnected space stations and 2 terraformed planetary regions. Its official name, Concordia, symbolized the unprecedented collaboration between humans and Meraki. Kira Voss stood on the central observation deck, watching a new generation of hybrid researchers work. Her body, like those of her people, had undergone remarkable transformations. Quantum adaptive implants blended seamlessly with her biological systems, a living testament to their species' resilience. The Zaran Confederacy had learned a costly lesson. Their attempts to challenge Concordia had been systematically dismantled, not through military might, but through technological and diplomatic innovation that rendered their aggressive strategies obsolete. Captain Eli Reyes, now a senior diplomatic advisor, joined Kira. The friendship they had forged during the initial rescue had become a cornerstone of Concordia's leadership. "We've become something nobody expected," Reyes remarked, watching a group of young researchers whose genetic makeup represented a true fusion of human and Meraki DNA. Their scientific achievements had revolutionized multiple fields. Concordia's ecological restoration technologies could transform dying planets. Their quantum communication systems made instantaneous galactic communication a reality. Medical breakthroughs developed in their research centers could cure diseases that had been considered incurable for centuries. Dr. Imani Okoro's research team had discovered that the Meraki's cellular adaptation was more than just survival mechanism, it was a form of collective intelligence. Their biological networks could process information, solve complex problems, and adapt in ways that traditional computational systems could never match. The educational systems of Concordia were equally revolutionary. Children learned not just through traditional methods, but through direct experiential transfer. Historical events could be experienced, not just studied. Emotional intelligence was as valued as technological prowess. But the greatest achievement was perhaps the most subtle. Concordia had become a model of peaceful coexistence. Their approach to conflict resolution was fundamentally different from traditional galactic powers. Instead of military might or economic pressure, they used understanding, adaptation, and collaborative problem-solving. Kai Rodriguez, now head of interstellar communications, had developed translation systems that went beyond language. These systems could translate not just words, but cultural contexts, emotional nuances, and collective memories. The Zaran Confederacy, once a threat, now sought diplomatic relations. The technological and cultural superiority of Concordia had rendered their aggressive strategies meaningless. As the solar system's primary star began to set, casting a golden light across the observation deck, Kira reflected on their journey. From the moment of absolute destruction on Mirok to this moment of unprecedented creation, they had transformed not just themselves, but the very understanding of survival. "We didn't just survive," she told Reyes, her voice carrying the weight of generations. "We became something entirely new." The young researchers continued their work, unaware that they were living proof of the most profound truth: survival is not about preservation, but about continuous transformation. Concordia was more than a settlement. It was a beacon of hope. A testament to the extraordinary potential that emerges when different species choose understanding over conflict, adaptation over destruction. The legacy of Mirok lived on, not as a lost civilization, but as the birthplace of a new way of existing among the stars.